A husband humiliated his black wife in front of 80 powerful guests at an elite Palm Beach gala. But less than an hour later, every television screen in America revealed a truth that would leave that entire ballroom speechless. Monica Brooks thought the worst moment of her life had just happened. Surrounded by wealthy donors, politicians, and social elites, she walked away from a room where no one defended her and no one spoke up. But while she sat in silence, something extraordinary was unfolding across the country. A secret she had spent years building through kindness, sacrifice, and compassion was about to be revealed to millions. The same people who overlooked her were about to discover who she really was. And before the night was over, a story that began with humiliation would become one of the most powerful stories of hope, courage, and redemption America had ever seen. The ballroom of the Seabrook Grand Hotel glowed like a field of gold. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling in perfect rows, scattering warm light across polished marble floors. Waiters moved quietly between tables carrying silver trays. A string quartet played near a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dark Atlantic Ocean. Outside, Palm Beach shimmered beneath a humid Florida night. Inside, more than 80 guests filled the room. Senators, corporate executives, real estate developers, philanthropists, people who appeared regularly on magazine covers and financial news programs. At the center of the ballroom sat Daniel Brooks, tall, confident, the youngest partner at Brooks Capital Holdings. His smile seemed effortless tonight. His dark tuxedo fit perfectly. Every important person in the room wanted a few minutes of his attention. But Daniel wasn't the person everyone would remember before the night was over. That person was sitting beside him. Monica Brooks adjusted the sleeve of her navy blue evening gown and glanced around the room. She was the only black woman at the head table. That wasn't unusual. After nearly 8 years of marriage to Daniel, she had become accustomed to rooms where she stood out before she even spoke. Still, something felt different tonight. Maybe it was the way people looked through her rather than at her. Maybe it was the conversation she had overheard near the entrance. Or maybe it was simply exhaustion. Monica smiled politely as another guest introduced himself. The man shook Daniel's hand first. Then he turned toward her. "And what is it you do?" he asked. The question sounded innocent. Most questions did. Monica had learned that years ago. "I run a non-profit organization," she said. The man nodded absent-mindedly. "That's nice." Then he immediately turned back toward Daniel. The conversation continued without her. Again. Just like always. Monica took a slow sip of water. Across the ballroom, a giant screen displayed photographs from the Foundation's recent fundraising projects, luxury housing initiatives, private school scholarships, business grants, million-dollar campaigns. The numbers impressed everyone. Yet Monica couldn't stop thinking about a shelter in Jacksonville that had nearly closed the previous month because it couldn't afford new roofing. Nobody here was talking about places like that. Nobody ever did. A server approached and refilled her glass. "Thank you," Monica said warmly. The young woman smiled. It was one of the few genuine smiles Monica had seen all evening. The Foundation's chairman eventually stepped onto the stage. The music faded. Conversations quieted. A spotlight illuminated the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "thank you for joining us tonight." Applause rolled across the ballroom. The speech began. Numbers, investments, future plans, growth, expansion, success. Monica listened politely. Beside her, Daniel nodded along. Across the table sat Eleanor Brooks, Daniel's mother, elegant, perfectly composed, the kind of woman who never raised her voice because she never had to. People simply listened when she spoke. Eleanor noticed Monica watching the stage. She offered a small smile. Not warm, not cruel, just distant. The same smile Monica had seen for years. the smile that reminded her she was accepted without ever truly belonging. The chairman eventually invited guests to share ideas for future initiatives. Several hands went up immediately. A developer proposed a luxury educational partnership. A hedge fund manager suggested expanding donor-exclusive programs. Another guest spoke about prestige branding opportunities. The room loved those ideas. Then silence settled. Monica looked around. Nobody mentioned shelters, food insecurity, single mothers, homeless veterans, the people she met every weekend, the people she knew by name. Before she could second-guess herself, she stood. A few heads turned. Daniel stiffened slightly beside her. Monica ignored it. She cleared her throat. I think we're forgetting someone. The room became quiet. The chairman smiled politely. And who might that be, Monica? She glanced around the ballroom. The people who need help the most. A few guests exchanged looks. Monica continued. There are families sleeping in cars less than 2 hours from here. The room remained silent. There are children doing homework under streetlights because they don't have electricity. Daniel shifted in his chair. Monica noticed, but she kept going. There are shelters closing because nobody funds them. Several people lowered their eyes. We talk a lot about growth, Monica said softly. Maybe we should talk more about people. The words weren't angry. They weren't dramatic. They were honest. And somehow honesty felt dangerous in a room like this. A murmur moved through the ballroom. The chairman forced a smile. Interesting perspective. Interesting perspective. The phrase landed exactly the way Monica expected. Not agreement. Not support. Dismissal dressed in polite language. Jason Brooks laughed from a nearby table. Not loudly. Just enough. The kind of laugh designed to be heard. Monica saw it. So did Daniel. Jason lifted his wine glass. Always saving the world, huh? A few people chuckled. Monica's face remained calm. Daniel wasn't smiling anymore. His jaw tightened. His ears reddened slightly. Anyone who knew him well would have recognized the signs. Monica did. For years, she had learned to read his emotions before he spoke. The chairman quickly moved the discussion elsewhere. The room eagerly followed. Conversations restarted. People returned to safer topics. Money, investments, expansion. The things they understood. Monica slowly sat down. She should have felt embarrassed. Instead, she felt relieved. For the first time all evening, she had said exactly what she believed. Daniel leaned closer. His voice remained low. You didn't need to do that. Monica looked at him. Do what? You made it awkward. She stared at him. I talked about helping people. You embarrassed the board. The words hit harder than she expected. Not because they were cruel, because they were familiar. Monica looked away, toward the ocean, toward the darkness beyond the windows, toward anywhere except the disappointment sitting beside her. The dinner continued. Courses arrived. Wine was poured. Laughter returned. Yet tension lingered between them. Then came the final speech of the evening. Daniel was invited to the stage. Applause filled the room. He delivered his remarks flawlessly. Everyone loved him. Monica watched from her seat. Halfway through the speech, Daniel thanked investors, partners, sponsors, his family, his mother, his mentors. He never mentioned Monica. Not once. Something inside her finally cracked. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a thread pulled loose after years of strain. When Daniel returned to his chair, Monica turned toward him. You forgot someone. Daniel frowned. What? You thanked everyone. His expression darkened. Not now. The room around them blurred. Years of swallowed disappointment rose to the surface. Not now, Monica whispered. Daniel glanced around nervously. Several guests had started watching. Monica. For 8 years I've stood beside you. Stop. I gave up everything for this family. Enough. You never defend me. The word came out sharper than intended. Heads turned. The room grew still. Jason smirked. Eleanor watched silently. Monica realized nobody was pretending not to listen anymore. Daniel's face flushed. The pressure, the audience, the embarrassment, the years of insecurity. Everything collided at once. And then it happened. A sudden motion. A terrible silence. Gasps. The room froze. Monica sat perfectly still. Her hand slowly rose to her cheek. The sting wasn't what hurt. The silence did. 80 people. Not one voice. Not one person standing. Not one person saying her name. Daniel looked stunned by his own action. Jason looked away. Eleanor remained motionless. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the ocean beyond the windows seemed quiet. Monica lowered her hand. She looked around the ballroom, around the people who had applauded Charity all evening, around the people who spoke endlessly about leadership and values, around the people who suddenly found great interest in their plates. And in that moment, Monica understood something. She was done. Not angry, not broken. Done. She rose slowly from her chair. No speech, no scene, no tears. Just dignity. The kind nobody in that room could give or take away. She picked up her purse, turned, and began walking toward the exit. Her heels echoed softly across the marble floor. Nobody stopped her. Nobody followed her. Until a voice called from behind. Monica. It was Grace, her oldest friend. Grace immediately left her table and hurried after her. Together they stepped into the hotel corridor. The ballroom doors closed behind them. The music resumed. The party continued, as if nothing had happened. Monica stood beneath the soft hallway lights. Her hands trembled slightly. For the first time all evening, she allowed herself to breathe. Then her phone vibrated. Once, twice, 3 times. She frowned. Several messages had arrived simultaneously, all from different numbers. Network executives, former colleagues, media contacts, people she hadn't spoken to in years. Her heartbeat quickened. She opened the latest message. Only 4 words appeared on the screen. Turn on the TV. Right now. Monica stared at the message, then at Grace. Neither woman spoke, because somewhere deep inside, both suddenly felt the same thing. The night wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Monica stared at the glowing screen of her phone while the sounds of the ballroom faded behind the heavy doors of the Seabrook Grand Hotel. Turn on the TV. Right now. The message came from a former network producer she hadn't spoken to in almost 7 years. Another message appeared. Then another. Then another. Grace looked at her. What is it? Monica shook her head. I don't know. But something deep inside her did know. Something old. Something buried. Something connected to a life she had spent years trying not to think about. The valet pulled their SUV around to the entrance. Warm Florida air wrapped around them as they stepped outside. Palm trees swayed gently beneath the yellow glow of hotel lights. Far behind them, laughter still floated from the ballroom. The party was continuing. as if Monica had never been there, as if none of it had happened. Grace opened the passenger door. "Come on." Monica climbed inside. The vehicle pulled away from the hotel and disappeared onto the coastal road. Rain began falling lightly against the windshield, tiny silver drops catching reflections from passing streetlights. Monica looked out the window. Palm Beach slowly disappeared behind them, and another city began appearing in her mind. Chicago, South Side, 15 years earlier. Long before the gowns, long before the charity galas, long before Daniel Brooks. Back when survival itself had been a full-time job. The neighborhood where Monica grew up never appeared in travel magazines. Tourists never visited. Television cameras only arrived when something terrible happened. Old brick apartment buildings stood shoulder to shoulder beneath elevated train tracks. Sirens echoed through the streets at night. Corner stores kept thick glass between customers and cash registers. People worked hard there, harder than most people would ever understand. Monica's mother, Lorraine Carter, worked 3 jobs: morning shift at a nursing home, afternoon cleaning offices downtown, night cashier at a grocery store. Sometimes Monica barely saw her, but every evening Lorraine found a way to sit beside her daughter for at least a few minutes. No matter how exhausted she was, no matter how much her feet hurt, no matter how little money they had. "You listen to me," Lorraine would say while helping Monica with homework. "People can take your house." She would point toward the window. "They can take your job." Another point. "They can take your money." Then she'd gently tap Monica's forehead. "But nobody can take what's in here." Monica never forgot those words. Not once. Their apartment was small. 2 rooms, peeling paint, leaky pipes, a heater that only worked when it felt like it. Yet somehow Lorraine made it feel like home. Fresh flowers always sat on the kitchen table. Books filled every shelf. Music drifted from an old radio most evenings. And laughter lived there. A lot of laughter. Until the day everything changed. Monica was 17 when the eviction notice arrived. A folded piece of paper taped to their door. Simple. Cold. Official. The building had been sold. Residents had 30 days to leave. Most families couldn't afford lawyers. Neither could Lorraine. She spent weeks fighting, making calls, filling out paperwork, waiting in long lines, begging people to listen. Nobody did. The new owners wanted luxury renovations. Poor tenants were simply obstacles. Monica still remembered the final morning. Rain falling outside. Cardboard boxes stacked near the door. Her mother standing in the center of the apartment looking around one last time. Not crying, not angry, just tired. So incredibly tired. "We'll figure it out," Lorraine said. She always said that. But for the first time, Monica heard uncertainty beneath the words. 2 months later, Lorraine collapsed during a night shift. Years of exhaustion had finally caught up with her. The doctors did what they could. It wasn't enough. Monica sat beside her hospital bed holding her hand, listening to machines hum quietly in the darkness. Lorraine opened her eyes once, just once, and smiled. "You tell their stories," she whispered. Monica leaned closer. "What stories?" "The people nobody sees." Those were the final words her mother ever spoke to her. The funeral happened on a gray November afternoon. Cold wind swept through the cemetery. Most people left quickly afterward. Monica stayed, long after everyone else was gone. Standing beside fresh earth, watching clouds drift overhead, feeling completely alone. That loneliness could have broken her. Instead, it changed her. The following years became a blur of work, school, Scholarships, late-night study sessions, part-time jobs, coffee, exhaustion, determination. Monica discovered journalism almost by accident. A college professor assigned students to investigate housing issues in Chicago. Most students treated it like homework. Monica treated it like a mission. She interviewed families facing eviction, single mothers, retired veterans, grandparents raising grandchildren, people who sounded exactly like her neighbors, exactly like her mother. When she presented her findings, the room fell silent. Not because she was dramatic, because she was honest. For the first time in her life, Monica realized something powerful. Stories could move people. Truth could move people. And if enough people listened, maybe things could change. Years later, she became an investigative reporter, then one of the youngest correspondents at a major Chicago network. She exposed corrupt landlords, predatory housing companies, fraud schemes targeting elderly residents. People began recognizing her face. Her reports won awards. Her career exploded. But success never erased memory. Every time Monica interviewed someone struggling to survive, she saw pieces of her mother. Every time she walked into a shelter, she remembered the apartment they lost. Every time she saw someone ignored by society, she remembered Lorraine's final words. Tell their stories. The people nobody sees. One winter evening after finishing a report, Monica stood outside the station watching snow fall across downtown Chicago. Her producer approached her. You know you're becoming famous, right? Monica laughed. No. You are. She shook her head. That's not the point. The producer smiled. Then what is? Monica looked toward the city, toward thousands of apartment windows glowing in the darkness, toward neighborhoods people rarely talked about, toward lives most people never noticed. The point, she said quietly, is making sure somebody gets seen. The producer studied her face. You really mean that? Monica nodded. Every word. And that was exactly why people trusted her. Not because she appeared on television, not because she won awards, because she cared. Deeply. Sometimes painfully. Years later, that same compassion would lead her toward the Harbor Project, toward thousands of people whose lives would change because of her, toward a young girl sleeping beneath a bus shelter, toward Daniel Brooks, toward Palm Beach, toward the ballroom she had just walked out of, toward everything that was still coming. Back inside the SUV, Monica slowly lowered her phone. Rain continued tapping against the glass. Grace glanced over. You okay? Monica looked out at the dark road ahead. No. It was the truth. The first honest answer she'd given all night. Grace reached over and squeezed her hand. Neither woman spoke for several moments. Then Monica's phone vibrated again. Another message. This one from New York. The sender's name made her heart skip. A network executive she hadn't spoken to in years. Monica opened the text. Only 6 words appeared. Everyone is waiting for you. Turn on the television, now. Monica looked up. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. And for the first time since leaving the ballroom, she felt something stronger than pain. Curiosity. Because whatever was happening tonight, somehow it was connected to the life she thought she'd left behind, and she was about to find out how. The rain continued falling outside the SUV. Palm trees blurred past the windows. Streetlights stretched across the wet pavement like ribbons of gold. Monica sat quietly with her phone in her lap. Grace drove without speaking. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence shared by people who had survived enough life together to know that some moments needed room to breathe. Another message appeared on Monica's screen, then another, then 3 more. Former producers, reporters, editors, People from a version of her life that seemed to belong to somebody else now. Years ago, her phone had looked like this every day. Back when deadlines controlled her schedule. Back when cameras followed her into city council meetings, courtrooms, and neighborhoods most politicians preferred not to visit. Back when her name appeared on television screens every evening. Now the messages felt strange, almost unreal. Because for the past several years, Monica had been living a very different life, a quieter life, a life most people never saw, a life that mattered far more to her than television ever had. Grace finally glanced toward her. "What are you thinking?" Monica smiled faintly. "The same thing I've been thinking for years." "And what's that?" She looked out the window. "I wonder if my mother would understand the choices I made." Grace didn't answer immediately. She already knew the answer. Lorraine Carter would have understood perfectly. The woman had spent her entire life helping people without asking for recognition. Monica had inherited that part of her, maybe inherited too much of it. The SUV stopped at a red light. Across the street, beneath a highway overpass, a small group of homeless men sat beneath plastic tarps. One of them pushed a shopping cart filled with blankets. Monica's eyes followed them. The sight immediately pulled her backward through time. Not to Chicago this time, to Jacksonville. 3 years earlier, the beginning of everything. The beginning of the Harbor Project. Back then, Monica had still been working part-time as a journalist, not because she needed the money, because she hadn't figured out how to let go. Journalism had shaped her identity for so long that leaving felt like cutting away part of herself. But something had changed after years of reporting. She noticed it slowly. Story after story, interview after interview. The same people kept appearing, different names, different faces, same pain. A woman escaping abuse, a family sleeping in a car, a teenager aging out of foster care, an elderly veteran facing eviction. Monica would tell their stories. The public would care for a week, sometimes 2. Then the cameras moved on. The suffering remained. That realization haunted her. One evening, she sat alone in her kitchen staring at a stack of notes from a recent report. A grandmother, 2 grandchildren, facing homelessness. The story had aired nationally. Viewers cried. Politicians made statements. Nothing changed. 3 months later, the family was still living in a motel. Monica stared at the paperwork for nearly an hour. Then she picked up the phone. The next day, she made another call. Then another. Then another. Within a month, she had rented a tiny office above a laundromat in Jacksonville. The sign outside the building was old and faded. The air conditioner barely worked. The carpet smelled like dust. Monica loved it immediately. She named it the Harbor Project. Not because it sounded impressive, because a harbor was a place people reached when storms became too much, and she knew exactly what storms looked like. The first months were difficult, very difficult. Most nonprofits begin with money. The Harbor Project began with folding tables, donated chairs, second-hand computers, and Monica, just Monica. She answered phones, sorted paperwork, delivered food, cleaned bathrooms, filled out grant applications, made coffee, sometimes all before noon. People told her she was crazy. Maybe they were right. The first woman who walked through the office doors was named Rebecca. She carried everything she owned inside 2 garbage bags. She hadn't slept indoors for weeks. Monica spent nearly 6 hours helping her find emergency housing. At the end of the day, Rebecca started crying. Monica thought something was wrong. Instead, Rebecca said something she never forgot. "You're the first person who's looked me in the eye all month." The words stayed with her. Years later, she could still hear them. Because that was the real problem. Not just poverty, Not just homelessness, not just suffering. People felt invisible, and Monica knew exactly how that felt. The harbor project slowly grew. One person became 10, 10 became 50, 50 became hundreds. Volunteers appeared, churches partnered with them. Local businesses donated supplies. A retired lawyer began helping families navigate housing disputes. A pediatric nurse started offering free health screenings. Every small act created another, and another, and another. Monica watched kindness spread through communities like sunlight breaking through clouds. Yet she never spoke about it publicly, never advertised herself, never posted photographs online, never accepted interviews. When donors insisted on taking pictures, Monica quietly stepped out of frame. She wanted the focus on the people being helped, not herself. Daniel never understood that. Neither did his family. Whenever the harbor project came up during dinner conversations, Jason Brooks usually smirked. Still saving the world one sandwich at a time? The others would laugh politely. Monica would smile, then change the subject, because arguing with people determined not to understand was exhausting. Besides, she had more important things to do. One Saturday morning, she was loading donated groceries into her SUV when a volunteer approached her. The woman looked worried. "We got another call." Monica closed the trunk. "What kind?" "2 kids." Monica immediately paid attention. The volunteer handed her a printed note. "They've been sleeping near a bus station for 3 nights. Monica read the address. A cold feeling moved through her chest. She had seen too many situations like this, too many children falling through cracks nobody wanted to fix. She folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her pocket. "I'll go." The volunteer nodded. "You always do." Monica smiled. Because she always did. No matter how tired she was, no matter how busy, no matter how difficult the situation looked. When someone needed help, she went. That afternoon, dark clouds gathered above Jacksonville. The forecast predicted a cold winter storm, the kind that drove most people indoors, the kind that made vulnerable lives even harder. Monica loaded blankets into her SUV. Food, water, emergency supplies. She checked the address one more time, a small bus terminal near the edge of the city, the sort of place most people drove past without noticing. She started the engine. Rain began falling. The windshield wipers swept steadily across the glass. Traffic lights reflected red and yellow across wet streets. Somewhere ahead waited 2 children she had never met. Children whose names she didn't know. Children who had no idea their lives were about to change. Monica couldn't know it either. Couldn't know that one of those children would someday stand before millions of Americans. Couldn't know that the kindness she offered that night would eventually come back to her during the darkest moment of her own life. She only knew someone needed help, and that was enough. The storm grew stronger as she drove toward the bus terminal. The city lights faded behind her. The road stretched forward into rain and darkness. And somewhere beneath a weather-beaten shelter, a young girl named Olivia Parker was holding her little brother close, wondering if anyone in the world still cared what happened to them. Monica pressed gently on the accelerator. She was getting closer. Neither of them knew it yet. But destiny was already moving toward them through the rain. The storm rolled across Jacksonville like a dark curtain. Rain hammered rooftops. Wind pushed abandoned newspapers across empty parking lots. Traffic lights reflected in long streaks of red and green on the wet pavement. Monica drove carefully through the weather. Her windshield wipers moved back and forth in a steady rhythm. The address sat folded on the passenger seat. She checked it twice, then a third time. Not because she was lost, because she already knew what she would find. Children sleeping outside rarely looked the way people imagined. Sometimes they looked like students. Sometimes they looked like honor roll kids. Sometimes they looked like the children sitting beside their parents at restaurants. Need rarely announced itself. That was one of the lessons Monica had learned years ago. The bus terminal appeared ahead, a small concrete structure near the edge of town. Most of the stores nearby were already closed. The parking lot sat nearly empty beneath flickering lights. Monica parked and shut off the engine. The rain sounded louder immediately. For a moment she simply sat there, looking, waiting, scanning the shadows. Then she spotted them. Two figures huddled beneath a shelter near the far end of the terminal. One larger, one smaller. A blanket covered both. The blanket wasn't thick enough. Not for a night like this. Monica grabbed the supplies from the back seat. Food, water, dry socks, blankets. Then she stepped into the rain. The wind immediately tugged at her coat. Water soaked the pavement beneath her shoes. The older child noticed her first. A girl, 17 maybe, thin, exhausted, protective. The moment she saw Monica approaching, she shifted slightly in front of the younger child. Instinct. The instinct of someone who had spent too long protecting herself. Monica stopped several feet away. Not too close. She understood fear. "Hi," she said gently. The girl didn't answer. Monica set one of the bags on a nearby bench. "My name is Monica." Nothing. The younger child peeked out from beneath the blanket. A little boy, maybe 8 years old. His face looked pale with exhaustion. Monica smiled softly. "Looks like you two picked a rough night to be outside." The boy almost smiled. Almost. The girl still said nothing. Monica nodded toward the bag. "I brought sandwiches." That finally got a reaction. The little boy looked at the bag immediately. The girl noticed. Her expression softened for half a second, then hardened again. "We don't need anything." The words came quickly, automatically, as if she'd said them many times before. Monica recognized that too. People who needed help often became experts at refusing it. "Okay," Monica said. The answer surprised the girl. Monica sat on the opposite bench, not crowding them, not pushing. Just sitting. Rain drummed against the shelter roof above them. Cars passed occasionally. Most didn't slow down. Most never noticed them. After several minutes, Monica opened one of the bags. The smell of warm chicken soup drifted into the cool air. The little boy swallowed. Monica pretended not to notice. Instead, she opened a second container, then a third. The aroma filled the shelter. The boy looked ready to climb across the bench. His sister finally sighed. "Tyler." The boy immediately lowered his eyes. Monica smiled. "So that's your name." Tyler nodded, very slightly. Monica held out a container. "Would Tyler like some soup?" The boy looked at his sister. The sister looked at Monica. Back and forth, like a negotiation. Finally, she nodded. Tyler practically grabbed the container. The first spoonful disappeared instantly. Monica looked away to give him dignity. No child liked being watched while hungry. Several minutes later, the girl's defenses began cracking. Just a little. "My name is Olivia," Monica smiled. "It's nice to meet you, Olivia." The rain continued. The shelter felt warmer now, less hostile, more human. Tyler finished the soup, then another container, then half a sandwich. Monica tried not to smile too obviously. The sight broke her heart. Children should never be that hungry. Eventually, Olivia spoke again. You work for the city? No.
We were safe, but
A church?
this place doesn't
No.
feel safe at all.
A shelter? Monica shook her head. I help people when I can. Olivia frowned. Why? The question wasn't rude. It was genuine. Monica understood immediately. Olivia had reached the point where kindness felt suspicious. A dangerous place for any person to live, especially a young one. Monica looked toward the rain, then back toward her. Because somebody helped me once. It wasn't the full answer, but it was enough. Olivia studied her for a long moment, trying to decide whether to believe her, trying to decide whether hope was safe. Finally, she spoke. Our mom died. The words came quietly, like a confession. Monica listened. She always listened first. Olivia explained everything. The addiction, the hospital, the relatives who disappeared afterward, the months moving between temporary places, the shelters that were already full, the nights in bus stations, the fear, the exhaustion. Tyler had fallen asleep against her shoulder before she finished speaking. Monica looked at the boy, then at Olivia, then at the rain outside. And suddenly she saw herself, not literally, but enough. A young woman trying to survive, trying to protect family, trying to stay strong while carrying far more than anyone should. Something tightened inside her chest. The same feeling she experienced whenever life placed someone in her path for a reason. She knew that feeling well, and she trusted it. Do you have somewhere safe tomorrow? Olivia looked down. The silence answered. Monica nodded. Okay. She stood. Olivia immediately stiffened again. Fear returned. Monica noticed. I know a hotel manager.
Don't worry, you're safe.
Olivia blinked. What?
I won't
You
let
shouldn't be here
anything
tonight.
happen to you.
We can't afford... I know. Monica smiled gently. That's not your problem. For several seconds, Olivia simply stared at her. The offer sounded impossible. Too good. Too sudden.
I understand
Too
why you're
dangerous.
hesitant, Olivia.
Monica understood every doubt
You
crossing her
listen to me
face.
closely.
Listen, Monica said softly.
Here.
You don't have to trust me tonight. Olivia remained silent. But you should trust how much your little brother needs sleep. Olivia looked at Tyler. Really looked at him. The exhaustion beneath his eyes. The way his small body trembled even while sleeping. The decision was made before she spoke. Monica saw it happen. Saw the exact moment survival finally surrendered to hope. A few minutes later, they were inside the SUV. Tyler asleep in the back seat beneath fresh blankets. Olivia sitting quietly in the front, watching the rain slide across the windows, still waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. The hotel stood near downtown. Nothing luxurious, nothing fancy. Just warm, safe, clean. The manager greeted Monica immediately. He already knew her. Many people in Jacksonville did. Not because she appeared on television, because she showed up, again and again, whenever someone needed help. Within 30 minutes, Tyler was asleep in a real bed. The room smelled faintly of fresh laundry. The heater hummed softly. Rain tapped against the window. Olivia stood in the middle of the room, looking stunned, as if she expected someone to take it away. Monica handed her a keycard. You can stay here. Olivia stared at it. Why? Again. That question. Why? Monica smiled. Because people always asked it, and because she never quite knew how to answer. Finally, she shrugged. Because someday you'll help someone too. Olivia looked at her, really looked at her. Maybe for the first time. And something changed. A tiny shift. Trust. Not complete. Not yet. But enough. Years later, Olivia would remember that exact moment. The sound of rain outside. The warmth of the room. The woman standing in front of her. The woman who expected nothing in return. The woman who changed everything. Monica left shortly after midnight. She never stayed for gratitude. Never waited for praise. Never asked for recognition. That wasn't why she came. Outside, the storm had begun to weaken. The city lights shimmered through the wet streets. Monica climbed into her SUV and drove home. She believed she had simply helped another family. One more act of kindness. One more difficult night made a little easier. What she didn't know was that Olivia Parker would never forget her. Not after that night. Not after the lawyer Monica found. Not after the school enrollment. Not after the apartment. Not after the second chance. Years would pass. Lives would change. Paths would separate. But one promise would remain. And standing beside the hotel window while Tyler slept safely for the first time in weeks, Olivia whispered that promise to herself. One day, somehow, she would find a way to repay Monica Brooks. Neither girl knew how. Neither girl knew when. But fate had already begun writing the answer, and that answer was moving toward Palm Beach faster than either of them could imagine. The rain outside the SUV had begun to ease. Monica sat quietly in the passenger seat while the city lights slipped by. Her phone remained in her hand. Unread messages continued arriving every few minutes, yet her thoughts had drifted somewhere else entirely. Back to the beginning. Back to Daniel. Back to the moment she stepped into a world that had never truly welcomed her. 10 years earlier, Monica Brooks wasn't Monica Brooks yet. She was Monica Carter, a respected investigative journalist, a woman whose reporting had exposed corrupt housing developers and dishonest public officials. She lived in Chicago then. She worked long hours. She loved her work. And she wasn't looking for romance. Then she met Daniel Brooks. The meeting happened at a charity fundraiser overlooking Lake Michigan. The ballroom occupied the top floor of a downtown skyscraper. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city below. Monica had attended to cover the event. Daniel had attended because his family name appeared on the invitation. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. Yet somehow, they found themselves standing beside the same dessert table. Daniel smiled first. "You look bored." Monica laughed. "So do you." The conversation lasted 20 minutes, then 40, then nearly 2 hours. By the end of the evening, neither wanted to leave. At first, Daniel seemed different from the people surrounding him. Less arrogant, less entitled, more curious. He asked questions. He listened. Or at least Monica believed he listened. When she talked about journalism, he seemed fascinated. When she spoke about housing inequality, he paid attention. When she described growing up in South Side Chicago, he never looked uncomfortable. For the first time, Monica felt seen. Not tolerated. Seen. They began dating. The relationship moved slowly. Daniel visited neighborhoods his friends had never entered. He volunteered at community events. He attended Harbor Project fundraisers after Monica founded the organization. He even helped serve meals at shelters a few times. Back then, Monica thought she knew who he was. Back then, Daniel probably believed he knew too. People rarely reveal their deepest weaknesses early. Sometimes not even to themselves. The first sign appeared almost a year later. Daniel invited Monica to meet his family. The Brooks family estate sat outside Palm Beach, a massive property overlooking the ocean. White columns, perfect lawns, private docks, security gates, the sort of place that looked more like a luxury resort than a home. Monica remembered feeling nervous, not intimidated, just cautious. She had spent her entire life entering rooms where she wasn't expected. This felt similar. The front door opened before they reached it. A housekeeper welcomed them inside. Everything smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers. Daniel seemed relaxed, comfortable, home. Monica felt every pair of eyes turn toward her the moment they entered the dining room. Some smiles appeared. Most were polite. A few were forced. Then Eleanor Brooks stood. Daniel's mother was beautiful in the way old Hollywood actresses were beautiful. Elegant, controlled, impossibly composed. She approached Monica slowly, extended a hand, and smiled. "Welcome." The word sounded warm. The eyes didn't. Monica noticed immediately. Years of interviewing people had sharpened her instincts. People often revealed themselves before they spoke. Eleanor certainly did. Dinner that evening felt strange. Not openly hostile, just uncomfortable. Questions came constantly. Where did Monica grow up? What did her parents do? How long had she worked in journalism? How had she met Daniel? Each question sounded harmless. Together they formed something else. An examination, a measurement, an evaluation. Monica answered every question politely. Eleanor listened carefully, watching, observing, judging. At the end of dinner, she finally spoke. "Daniel has always surprised us." The room grew slightly quieter. Daniel laughed. "What does that mean?" Eleanor smiled. "It means you've always chosen your own path." Nobody said anything. The comment floated above the table. Everyone understood it, especially Monica. The conversation quickly moved on, but the message remained. Years later, she would realize that moment had been the beginning. Not the first wound, the first warning. Still, Monica loved Daniel, and Daniel loved her, or at least he believed he did. They married 18 months later. The ceremony took place on a private beach. The ocean sparkled beneath a cloudless sky. Guests applauded. Champagne flowed. Photographers captured every moment. The pictures looked perfect. The marriage wasn't. At first, the problems were subtle, almost invisible. Family dinners where Monica felt excluded from conversations. Business gatherings where people assumed she worked for Daniel rather than beside him. Events where she was introduced as Daniel's wife instead of by her accomplishments. Small things, easy to dismiss individually, impossible to ignore collectively. One Christmas Eve changed everything. The Brooks family hosted nearly 50 guests, politicians, investors, business partners, family friends. The dining table stretched almost the entire length of the room. Monica arrived early. She helped set place cards. She chatted with staff. She greeted guests. Then she noticed her seat assignment. Everyone important sat near the center. Daniel sat beside Eleanor. Jason sat nearby. Board members occupied surrounding chairs. Monica sat near the far end. Beside two distant cousins nobody else wanted to talk to. She stared at the card for several seconds. The placement wasn't accidental. She knew it. Eleanor knew it. Everyone knew it. Still, Monica sat down without complaint. Because she loved Daniel. Because she wanted peace. Because she believed things would improve. They didn't. The next spring brought the family portrait. Professional photographers arrived. Everyone dressed formally. The Brooks family lined up across a perfectly landscaped lawn. The photographer adjusted positions repeatedly. Move left, move right. Closer together. One more picture. One more adjustment. At some point, Monica realized something. She wasn't in the frame. Not completely. Not intentionally. Just omitted. Nobody seemed to notice, not even Daniel. The camera clicked. The portrait was taken. The official Brooks family photograph would hang in hallways and offices for years. Monica wasn't in it. That night she stood alone on the balcony overlooking the ocean. Wind moved through her hair. Below her, waves crashed against the shore. Daniel eventually joined her. Beautiful night, Monica nodded. You didn't notice. Daniel frowned. Notice what? She looked at him. The picture. Confusion crossed his face. Then realization. Then discomfort. The familiar sequence. Oh. Just one word. Oh. No outrage, no anger, no confrontation. Just discomfort. Monica looked away. The ocean suddenly felt very far away. That was the moment she learned something important about her husband. Daniel wasn't cruel. Cruel people acted intentionally. Daniel was something else. Weak. And weakness could wound people just as deeply, maybe deeper, because it never looked like harm. It looked like avoidance. The years continued. Jason Brooks became increasingly bold. His comments arrived disguised as jokes. Comments about neighborhoods. Comments about culture. Comments about programs helping poor communities. Comments designed to sting without leaving visible marks. Whenever Monica challenged him, Daniel changed the subject. Whenever Eleanor Shaw crossed a line, Daniel found excuses. Whenever Monica expressed frustration, Daniel asked for patience. More patience. Always patience. The burden of peace somehow became hers. One evening after another exhausting family gathering, Grace visited Monica at home. The two women sat on the patio watching the sunset. Palm trees swayed above them. The sky glowed orange and gold. Grace listened while Monica described another awkward dinner. Another dismissive comment. Another moment Daniel ignored. Finally, Grace asked a question. Why do you stay quiet? Monica looked toward the horizon. Because she honestly didn't know anymore. Maybe love. Maybe hope. Maybe fear. Maybe all three. Grace reached across the table. You deserve people who stand beside you. The words lingered. Years later, Monica would still remember them. Because Grace had been right. The problem wasn't Eleanor, or Jason, or the Brooks family. The problem was standing alone while pretending she wasn't. Back in the SUV, Monica slowly closed her eyes. Memories faded. The present returned. Palm Beach. The ballroom. The silence. The sting of humiliation. The years that had led there. Grace glanced toward her. You thinking about Daniel? Monica nodded. Yeah. Grace sighed. Neither woman spoke for several moments. Then Monica's phone vibrated again. A new message. Another unfamiliar number. Another message from New York. This one contained only a single sentence. The announcement has already started. Monica stared at the screen. A strange feeling moved through her chest. Not fear, not hope. Something between them. Because somewhere, somehow, a story was unfolding, and for reasons she couldn't yet understand. She was at the center of it. The SUV rolled through the wet Florida night. Rainwater glistened on the road like scattered diamonds beneath the streetlights. Monica stared out the passenger side window. Palm trees drifted past in blurred shadows. Her reflection floated faintly in the glass. For a moment, she barely recognized herself. Not because she looked different, because somewhere over the years she had stopped seeing the woman she used to be. The fearless reporter. The woman who challenged powerful people without hesitation. The woman who once walked into difficult rooms carrying nothing but truth and confidence. That version of Monica still existed. Somewhere. But the road that had led her here had left scars. Scars nobody could see. Back at the Brooks estate, those scars had grown year after year, quietly, patiently, like cracks spreading through a foundation. The first few years after marriage had passed in a haze of compromise. Monica told herself every family had flaws. Every marriage required adjustment. Every relationship demanded patience. But eventually, patience stopped feeling like love. It started feeling like surrender. The Brooks family hosted events constantly. Charity galas, business dinners, fundraisers, holiday gatherings, golf weekends, political receptions. An endless calendar of people with money talking to other people with money. Monica attended them all. She smiled, shook hands, made conversation, listened politely, and learned exactly where she stood. One evening at a waterfront charity dinner, she found herself speaking with a prominent donor. The woman smiled warmly, at first. Then she asked where Monica worked. "The Harbor Project," Monica answered. The donor nodded. "Oh, yes." A pause. Then came the question. "And what does your husband do?" Monica almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. She explained Daniel's position at Brooks Capital. The woman's face immediately brightened, as though she had finally found the important person in the conversation. Moments later, the woman excused herself to speak with Daniel. Monica remained standing alone beside a table of expensive hors d'oeuvres, watching, understanding, invisible again. That happened more often than people realized. Not dramatic moments. Small ones, the kind that slowly wear away confidence, one grain at a time. The Brooks family never openly insulted her. That would have been easier. At least cruelty can be confronted. Instead, they specialized in something softer, something harder to explain. Exclusion. The art of making someone feel unwanted without ever saying the words. Eleanor Brooks mastered it. At family gatherings, she rarely addressed Monica directly. Questions about future plans went to Daniel. Conversations about philanthropy went to investors. Discussions about community issues somehow happened around Monica, instead of with her. Always polite. Always subtle. Always deliberate. Jason Brooks was different. Jason enjoyed being noticed. He enjoyed attention. And unlike his mother, he rarely bothered disguising his opinions. One Thanksgiving afternoon, the family gathered on the estate's enormous back terrace overlooking the ocean. A football game played quietly on a television nearby. Guests laughed over drinks. Children chased one another across the lawn. The atmosphere seemed relaxed, until Jason started talking. The city spent another $50 million on social programs this year. He shook his head dramatically. What a waste. Several people chuckled. Monica remained silent. Jason noticed. He always noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You disagree?" Monica set down her glass. "I think helping people matters." Jason laughed. There it is. Several heads turned. The Monica answer. Daniel immediately looked uncomfortable. Monica noticed. Of course she did. She always noticed. Jason continued. "You can't save everybody." "No," Monica said calmly. "But that doesn't mean you stop trying." Jason rolled his eyes. "That's why rich people stay rich." The comment lingered. A few guests laughed politely. Others pretended not to hear. Daniel stared into his drink. Silent. Again. The silence hurt more than Jason ever could. Because Jason was predictable. Daniel was supposed to be different. That evening, after guests left, Monica finally confronted him. They stood in the kitchen. Only the refrigerator light illuminated the room. "Why didn't you say anything?" Daniel sighed immediately. Already exhausted. Already defensive. "Monica." "No." She crossed her arms. "Why didn't you say anything?" "It wasn't worth arguing about." The answer hit her harder than expected. Not worth arguing about. As though her dignity existed somewhere on a scale. As though defending her required calculating costs. Monica stared at him. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "You know how Jason is." That sentence became his favorite excuse. "You know how Jason is. You know how my mother is. You know how these people are. Always explanations, never action." The next morning, Monica left early for Jacksonville. She spent the weekend helping families through the harbor project. By Sunday evening, she felt human again. Because something remarkable happened every time she stepped away from the Brooks world. People saw her, not as Daniel's wife, not as a social accessory, not as an outsider. Just Monica. The woman who helped. The woman who listened. The woman who cared. At Harbor Project headquarters, nobody cared about family names. They cared about outcomes. A veteran finding housing. A child getting school supplies. A mother securing legal assistance. Real things. Meaningful things. The office occupied a modest building near downtown Jacksonville. Nothing glamorous. Nothing impressive. Yet Monica loved walking through those doors. The smell of coffee. The sound of volunteers laughing. Stacks of donated blankets. Whiteboards filled with names and plans and goals. Hope lived there. One Wednesday afternoon, she arrived unexpectedly and discovered volunteers gathered around a small table, celebrating. Someone had brought cupcakes. Someone else carried balloons. Monica frowned. What's happening? The staff exchanged smiles. A volunteer handed her a folder. Monica opened it. Inside sat dozens of letters, thank you letters. Families, children, veterans, people whose lives had changed because of Harbor Project programs. Monica slowly turned the pages. Photographs, graduation announcements, holiday cards, handwritten notes. One letter simply read, "Thank you for seeing me when nobody else did." Monica felt tears gathering unexpectedly. Not sadness, something else, something deeper. Proof. Proof that kindness mattered. Proof that effort mattered. Proof that even small acts created ripples. She looked around the room, at the volunteers, at the people who showed up every day, at the mission her mother would have loved, and for the first time in a long while, she felt proud. Truly proud. Not because of recognition, because of impact. That evening, she drove home smiling, a rare thing lately. But when she arrived at the Brooks estate, the feeling faded. The house stood enormous against the darkening sky, perfectly maintained, perfectly beautiful, perfectly cold. Inside, Daniel sat reviewing investment reports. He barely looked up. How was Jacksonville? Monica smiled. Wonderful. Good. Then his attention returned to paperwork. The conversation ended. Just like that. Monica stood there for a moment, watching, realizing something she had avoided admitting. She felt more connected to strangers than to her own husband. The realization frightened her, because once you recognize a truth, you can't unknow it. Weeks passed, then months. The distance grew. The Harbor Project flourished. Monica quietly faded within her own marriage, And still she stayed. Still she hoped. Still she believed things might improve. Until one morning something unexpected arrived. A plain white envelope. No return address. Postmarked New York City. Monica found it in the estate mailbox while leaving for work. She nearly ignored it. Almost tossed it into a stack of routine correspondence. Instead, she opened it. Inside sat a single letter. Professional stationery. A network logo. Her heartbeat slowed, then quickened, then stopped entirely. She read the first line. Read it twice, then a third time. A national media organization had been following her work. Not her journalism. Not her marriage. Not the Brooks family. Her work. The Harbor Project. The letter requested a private meeting. Nothing more. No explanation. No details. Just a date. A location. And a signature from someone whose name Monica recognized instantly. One of the most influential executives in American broadcasting. Monica stood frozen beside the mailbox. The Florida breeze moved through the palm trees above. Birds chirped somewhere in the distance. The world continued normally. But something inside her shifted. Because after years of feeling invisible, someone had finally been paying attention. And she had no idea how much that letter was about to change everything. Monica sat alone in her office long after everyone else had gone home. The Harbor Project building was quiet. Outside, Jacksonville settled into evening. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Cars rolled past on distant roads. The hum of the city softened into the background. Only the desk lamp illuminated the letter in front of her. She had read it 6 times already. Maybe 7. The words never changed. Neither did the signature. Richard Langston, Executive Vice President, National Broadcast Network. One of the most influential names in American television. Monica leaned back in her chair. The letter felt unreal. Not because she didn't know television. She knew it well. She had spent years building a career there. The strange part was that the invitation wasn't about journalism. It wasn't about ratings. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't even about her past reporting. The letter specifically referenced the Harbor Project. The work she had quietly devoted herself to. The work most people never noticed. The work Daniel's family routinely dismissed. For years, Monica had convinced herself that nobody outside a few local communities cared about what she was doing. Apparently, she had been wrong. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Grace stepped into the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. The smell filled the room immediately. Monica smiled. "How did you know I was still here?" Grace laughed. "Because you overthink everything." She handed over the coffee. Monica accepted it gratefully. The warmth felt good against her hands. Grace sat across from her. "You're staring at that letter like it's going to explode." "It might." Grace extended her hand. Monica passed it over. A few moments later, Grace lowered the page, then looked up. "Oh." Monica nodded. "Exactly." "Richard Langston?" "Yep. The Richard Langston. Unless there's another one." Grace stared at her, then burst into laughter. Monica blinked. "What?" Grace shook her head. "Monica, do you have any idea how many people would kill for this meeting?" Monica groaned. "Please don't say that. I'm serious." Grace tapped the paper. "This is huge." Monica looked away. The word huge made her uncomfortable, because huge usually came with attention, and attention was something she'd spent years avoiding. Not intentionally. It just happened. The Harbor Project was never about her. It was about people who needed help. She preferred it that way. Grace watched her carefully. "You want to know what I think?" Monica already knew. Grace continued anyway. I think your mother would tell you to go. The room became quiet. Lorraine Carter still had that effect, even years after her passing. Monica stared into her coffee. I don't know. Grace leaned forward. Why? Monica hesitated, then finally answered honestly. Because I left that world for a reason. Grace nodded slowly. She understood. Television had given Monica opportunities. It had also taken pieces of her. Years of deadlines, constant pressure, public scrutiny, the feeling that every tragedy became tomorrow's content. Eventually, Monica couldn't do it anymore. She wanted to help people directly, not just talk about helping them. The Harbor Project became her answer, her purpose, her second life. Returning to television felt dangerous, almost like moving backward. Grace seemed to read every thought crossing her face. Maybe you're not going backward. Monica looked up. Maybe this is something new. The possibility lingered between them. For the first time that evening, Monica considered it. Maybe this wasn't about returning to the past. Maybe it was about bringing her present somewhere bigger. The meeting took place 2 weeks later in New York. Monica almost canceled 3 times. The morning flight nearly changed her mind a fourth. But somehow she ended up walking into a sleek glass building overlooking Manhattan. The network headquarters occupied 30 floors. The lobby alone felt larger than some hotels. Television screens covered entire walls. Employees hurried through security gates. Producers carried tablets. Executives rushed between meetings. The energy reminded Monica of another lifetime. A receptionist escorted her upstairs. The elevator climbed rapidly. 23rd floor, then 24th, then 25th. When the doors opened, Richard Langston himself was waiting. Monica recognized him instantly. Silver hair, perfect suit, the calm confidence of someone accustomed to making major decisions. His smile appeared genuine. Monica Brooks. He extended his hand. It's an honor. Monica blinked. Most executives didn't greet visitors personally. It's nice to meet you. No, Richard said warmly. The honor is mine. That sentence caught her completely off guard. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. Not once did Richard mention ratings. Not once did he mention profit. Instead, he asked questions about Harbor Project, about homelessness, about housing insecurity, about the people Monica helped. He knew details, names, programs, statistics. The level of preparation shocked her. Finally, Monica interrupted him. How long have you been following our work? Richard smiled. 5 years. Monica stared. 5? He nodded. One of our producers volunteered at one of your shelters. Now Monica understood. A little. Richard leaned forward. Monica, most people talk about helping communities. He paused. You actually do it. The room fell quiet. Monica wasn't sure what to say. Richard continued. That's rare. Then he slid a folder across the table. Monica opened it. Inside sat a proposal. A major national initiative. A documentary series. Public outreach programs. Partnerships. Community advocacy, and one specific role. Her role. Richard watched her carefully. We want your voice. Monica looked up. My voice? We think America needs it. For several seconds, she simply stared. The proposal felt overwhelming, flattering, terrifying, exciting, all at once. Richard wasn't finished. The announcement won't happen immediately. Monica frowned. What announcement? A smile appeared, the smile of a man protecting a surprise. We'll discuss that later. Monica left New York carrying more questions than answers. But something had changed. For the first time in years, possibility had returned. The future suddenly looked larger, brighter, more open. Unfortunately, not everyone shared her excitement. Daniel barely looked up from his laptop when she told him. That's nice. Monica waited. Nothing else came. That's it? Daniel shrugged. What do you want me to say? The disappointment felt familiar, painfully familiar. She sat beside him on the couch. They've been following Harbor Project for years. Good. They want me involved in a national initiative. Sounds great. His eyes never left the screen. Monica watched him for several seconds, then gave up. Some conversations couldn't happen alone. Months passed. More meetings followed. Phone calls, planning sessions, confidential discussions. Monica signed paperwork, filmed interviews, participated in private projects she wasn't allowed to discuss publicly. The secrecy became increasingly difficult, especially at family events. Jason mocked Harbor Project regularly. Eleanor treated it like a hobby. Daniel remained indifferent. And all the while, Monica carried a secret growing larger every week. A secret she couldn't share. A secret that was slowly leading toward the night of the Palm Beach Gala. The night everything would change. The night 80 powerful people would witness the collapse of one life and the beginning of another. Back in the present, the SU-5 continued moving through the rainy Florida darkness. Monica looked at her phone again. More messages, more calls, more urgency. Grace finally reached toward the dashboard. I think it's time. Monica swallowed. Her heartbeat quickened. The giant screen in the center console remained dark, waiting. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, anticipation filled every inch of space. Grace pressed the power button. The television screen flickered. A network logo appeared. Then a studio. Then a familiar face standing beneath bright lights. Richard Langston. Monica froze. Because suddenly she knew. Whatever was happening tonight, it wasn't a coincidence. It was the reason everyone had been calling. And in less than a minute, her entire life was about to change. The television screen flickered inside the SUV. Rain slid down the windows in silver streams. The highway stretched through the darkness ahead. For a moment, all Monica could hear was the steady hum of the tires against the wet road. Then Richard Langston appeared on the screen. The studio behind him glowed with soft blue lighting. A large audience sat beyond the cameras. The atmosphere felt different from a normal broadcast. Bigger, more important. Monica leaned forward slightly. Beside her, Grace watched without saying a word. Richard smiled into the camera. Good evening, America. The audience applauded. Tonight was clearly no ordinary program. Richard waited for the applause to fade. Then he spoke again. Every year, our network recognizes individuals whose work changes lives far beyond headlines, politics, and public attention. Monica frowned. A strange feeling began building inside her chest. The audience remained silent, listening, waiting. Richard continued. This year's recipient spent years helping people who had nowhere else to turn. Images appeared behind him. Community centers, shelters, families, children, volunteers carrying boxes of food. Monica stared. Her heartbeat quickened. Grace slowly turned toward her. Oh my God. Monica couldn't speak. The photographs continued. People she recognized. People she had helped. People she remembered by name. Faces from Jacksonville. Faces from shelters. Faces from years of quiet work. The audience watched the images in complete silence. Richard's voice softened. She never sought recognition. Another image appeared, a Harbor Project volunteer event. Monica stood in the background carrying supplies. She hadn't even known someone took the photograph. She never asked for attention. More images. A community legal clinic. A school backpack drive. Emergency housing assistance. Food distribution programs. The years unfolded across the screen like pages turning inside a photo album. Monica's eyes filled with tears. Not because of the recognition, because she suddenly realized someone had been paying attention all along. All those years, all those weekends, all those nights. Someone had seen. Richard looked directly into the camera. For nearly a decade, this woman quietly transformed thousands of lives. The audience applauded. Louder this time. Longer. Monica pressed a hand against her mouth. Grace grabbed her arm. Monica. Neither woman could believe what they were watching. Richard smiled. Then he delivered the words that changed everything. Tonight, we are honored to name Monica Brooks the recipient of the American Humanitarian Award. The audience exploded into applause. People stood. The entire studio rose to its feet. Monica stared at the screen, frozen. Her name echoed through the auditorium. Applause filled the SUV, filled the night, filled every empty space left behind by years of being overlooked. For a brief moment, Monica forgot the ballroom, forgot Palm Beach, forgot Daniel, forgot the silence, forgot everything. All she saw were the people she had helped. All she felt was gratitude. Richard continued speaking, but Monica barely heard him. The emotions were too overwhelming. Years of sacrifice, years of doubt, years of wondering whether any of it mattered. Now the answer stood before her. Yes, it mattered. The broadcast shifted. A video montage began. The screen filled with scenes from the Harbor Project. Volunteers unloading trucks. Children receiving school supplies. Single mothers moving into apartments. Veterans receiving housing assistance. Community kitchens serving meals. The audience watched. Many wiped away tears. Grace certainly did. Monica wasn't far behind. Then something unexpected happened. The screen showed Lorraine Carter, Monica's mother, a photograph she hadn't seen in years. Young, smiling, standing beside their tiny apartment in Chicago. Monica inhaled sharply. The audience became completely silent. Richard's voice returned. Every great act of kindness begins somewhere. The photograph remained on the screen. This journey began with a woman named Lorraine Carter. Monica's tears finally escaped. Grace squeezed her hand tightly. The image slowly faded. Another appeared. A teenage Monica, holding notebooks, standing outside a community college building. Then another. Her first newsroom, her first reporting assignment, her first television appearance. The entire story unfolded before millions of viewers. Not the story of a celebrity, the story of a servant, a helper, a woman who refused to look away when people needed help. Richard smiled. And tonight, we celebrate her. The audience stood once more. Another standing ovation. Longer this time. Stronger. Monica shook her head in disbelief. This can't be real. Grace laughed through tears. Oh, it's real. More messages flooded Monica's phone. Hundreds now. Friends, former co-workers, volunteers, people she hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone was watching. Everyone. The screen shifted again. Richard glanced toward the side of the stage. His expression changed. A knowing smile. The kind that suggested another surprise was coming. Monica noticed immediately. So did Grace. "What now?" Grace whispered. Richard looked back toward the audience. "There is one more person who asked to be here tonight." The audience murmured, curious, interested. Monica frowned. She didn't know what was happening anymore. Richard continued. This individual insisted on telling her own story. The lights inside the studio dimmed slightly. A spotlight illuminated the side entrance. Monica felt her heartbeat quicken again. The audience turned, waiting, watching. Then a young woman stepped onto the stage. Tall, confident, elegant, dressed in a simple navy suit. The audience applauded politely. Monica stared at the screen. Something about the woman seemed familiar. Very familiar. The woman smiled nervously, accepted the microphone, then looked directly into the camera. And the moment Monica recognized her, the world seemed to stop. Grace gasped. "Oh my God." Monica couldn't breathe, because standing under the spotlight was a face she had not seen in years. A face from a rainy night. A face from a bus shelter. A face from one of the most important moments of her life. Olivia Parker. The little girl she had once found sleeping beside her younger brother. Only now she wasn't a frightened teenager anymore. She was strong, educated, confident. And somehow, she was here, on national television, looking directly into the camera, looking directly at Monica. The audience fell silent. Olivia smiled softly. Then she raised the microphone and began to speak. Back at the Palm Beach Gala, no one yet knew what was unfolding on television. Crystal glasses still sat on white tablecloths. The orchestra had resumed playing. Guests tried to return to normal conversations, but uneasiness lingered. Because something about Monica's departure felt unfinished. Something about the silence afterward felt wrong. And in less than 5 minutes, the people inside that ballroom would discover exactly who Monica Brooks really was. But first, America was about to hear Olivia Parker's story. The studio lights softened. The applause slowly faded. Millions of viewers across the country watched in silence. Living rooms, airport lounges, hospital waiting rooms, college dormitories, restaurants, hotel bars, phones held in trembling hands. Everywhere, people leaned closer to their screens. Olivia Parker stood alone beneath the spotlight. For a brief moment, she looked overwhelmed. Not by the cameras, not by the audience, by the memory. Monica could see it in her eyes. The same eyes she remembered from years ago. Eyes that had learned how to survive before they ever learned how to dream. Olivia took a slow breath, then smiled. "My name is Olivia Parker." Her voice was steady, confident. The voice of someone who had fought hard to become the person standing there. The audience listened carefully. "I was 17 years old when I met Monica Brooks." A photograph appeared behind her. A grainy image. An old bus terminal. Rain. Darkness. A rusted shelter. Monica's breath caught. Grace covered her mouth. "Oh, Olivia." The audience immediately sensed something important was coming. Olivia continued. "When people hear stories about homelessness, they usually imagine statistics." The giant screen behind her displayed numbers. National homelessness rates. Youth homelessness. Families living without permanent housing. The audience grew quiet. But homelessness isn't a statistic. The screen changed. A photograph of a young boy. Tyler. 8 years old, smiling shyly. Several audience members visibly reacted. Homelessness is your little brother pretending he isn't hungry because he wants you to eat first. Silence. Absolute silence. The words landed with devastating honesty. Olivia paused, gathering herself, then continued. Our mother died when I was 16. Images appeared. Not personal photographs, illustrations, hospital hallways, empty apartments, bus stations. Enough to tell the story, not enough to exploit it. We lost our home 6 months later. Monica felt tears forming again. Not because she hadn't known the story, because she remembered how frightened Olivia had looked that night, how exhausted, how determined to protect Tyler. Olivia smiled sadly. I spent months believing nobody cared whether we lived or died. The audience remained motionless, listening. Some people wiped away tears. Others stared at the screen, unable to look away. Then Olivia's expression softened, and then it started raining. A photograph appeared. Rain against a bus terminal roof, a simple image. Yet Monica immediately remembered every detail. The sound, the cold, the fear, the soup, the blankets, the beginning. Olivia looked directly into the camera. That night, a woman walked through the storm carrying food. The screen changed again. This time, Monica appeared. Not a glamorous photograph, not an award photo, not a television image, just Monica unloading supplies from her SUV. The audience applauded softly. Olivia smiled. She didn't know us. The applause stopped. She didn't owe us anything. Another pause. She wasn't there because cameras were watching. Now people were crying openly. Olivia's voice never wavered. She came because she cared. Monica lowered her head. Grace squeezed her hand tighter. Neither woman spoke. Olivia continued. Most people think heroes arrive dramatically. A gentle smile crossed her face. Mine arrived carrying chicken soup. The audience laughed softly through tears. The moment broke the tension beautifully. Then the next photograph appeared. A small hotel room. Tyler sleeping. Olivia sitting beside him. Monica remembered taking that picture for housing paperwork. She never imagined anyone would see it. Years later, it now filled every television screen in America. That was the first safe night my brother and I had in months. The audience remained silent. The image lingered. Powerful because it was real. Olivia looked toward Richard Langston, then back toward the audience. Most people would have stopped there. She shook her head. Monica didn't. Photographs began appearing rapidly. School enrollment documents, legal aid meetings, apartment keys, community support programs, Tyler's first soccer game, high school graduation. Every milestone, every step, every opportunity. The audience watched the chain reaction unfold. One act of kindness leading to another, and another, and another. Then Olivia delivered the line that changed everything. Because Monica helped us. The screen behind her shifted. A new image appeared. Harvard University. The audience gasped. A second image followed. Olivia standing in graduation robes. Then another. Olivia speaking at a national youth leadership conference. Then another. A law school acceptance letter. The audience erupted into applause. Standing applause. Powerful applause. The kind reserved for moments people genuinely feel. Olivia waited for the noise to settle, then smiled. I am now a second-year law student at Harvard. More applause, more tears, more people standing. Monica covered her face. She had no idea. Not the law school, not Harvard, not any of it. After helping Olivia years ago, their paths gradually separated. Life moved forward. Monica never followed up looking for praise. That wasn't who she was. She helped people. Then she let them fly. Now she was seeing the result for the first time. And it was overwhelming. Olivia continued. My brother Tyler is preparing for college. A new image appeared. Tyler standing beside a robotics project, smiling, confident, healthy, safe. The audience applauded again. Monica openly cried now. She couldn't stop. Didn't want to. Years of uncertainty suddenly transformed into proof. Proof that kindness mattered. Proof that one decision could alter an entire future. Olivia took a deep breath, then looked directly into the camera. The room became silent again. This isn't my story. She pointed toward Monica's photograph. It's hers. The audience immediately applauded. Olivia shook her head. No. She smiled. You don't understand. The room quieted again. Then she spoke the words nobody expected. Monica Brooks has done this hundreds of times. A murmur moved through the audience. Several people exchanged surprised looks. Olivia nodded. Hundreds. The giant screen began changing rapidly. Family after family. Story after story. Veterans. Single mothers. Children. Elderly residents. Students. Names. Faces. Lives. Each connected to Harbor Project. Each connected to Monica. The audience stared in disbelief because they were witnessing something rare. Not one good deed, not one heroic moment, a lifetime of them. Olivia smiled through tears. Every person on that screen has a story. Another image appeared, then another, then another. The screen seemed endless. Monica sat frozen. She recognized many faces. People she had nearly forgotten, people she never expected to see again, people whose lives had quietly continued and thrived because somebody cared enough to help. Olivia's voice softened. I spent years wondering why she helped us. The audience leaned forward, waiting. Olivia smiled. Now her eyes found the camera, found Monica, found every viewer watching. Then she answered her own question. Because kindness was never something Monica Brooks did. A pause. A beautiful pause. It was who she was. The audience rose to their feet again. The loudest applause of the night. People crying. People cheering. People standing. The energy filled the studio. Filled living rooms. Filled the SUV. Filled Monica's heart. For a brief moment, everything felt healed. Then Grace looked down at her phone. Her expression changed, instantly. The smile disappeared. Monica noticed. What is it? Grace stared at the screen, not answering. The color drained from her face. Grace? Slowly, Grace turned the phone toward her. Monica looked down. A video was playing. Shaky footage. Palm Beach. Crystal chandeliers. A crowded ballroom. A familiar face. Daniel. Then Monica saw herself. The room. The silence. The moment. Someone had recorded it, and according to the numbers rapidly climbing beneath the video, millions of people were already watching. At that exact moment, inside the Palm Beach ballroom, dozens of phones began vibrating simultaneously, and the people who had ignored Monica Brooks only an hour earlier were about to discover that the entire country now knew her name. The atmosphere inside the Seabrook Grand Hotel had already changed. The laughter sounded forced now. The conversations were shorter, uneasy. Guests kept glancing toward the ballroom entrance. toward the doors Monica had walked through, toward the empty chair she had left behind. Nobody wanted to discuss what had happened, yet nobody could stop thinking about it. Daniel sat near the center table with a half-finished glass of wine. He hadn't touched it in 20 minutes. His mind replayed the same moment again and again. Monica standing. Monica speaking. The room watching. The silence afterward. He rubbed his forehead, trying to push the memory away, trying to convince himself things would calm down, that tomorrow would arrive. The headlines would move on. Life would continue. His phone vibrated, then vibrated again, then again. Daniel frowned. The screen displayed dozens of notifications, messages, emails, missed calls. The number kept climbing. Across the room, Jason checked his own phone. His confident expression vanished immediately. What the hell? Several nearby guests looked down at their devices, one by one, like falling dominoes. The room grew quieter. A woman gasped. A man cursed under his breath. Someone stood up abruptly. Another guest whispered something to the person beside him. The whisper spread, then spread again, until nearly everyone in the ballroom was staring at a screen. Daniel finally opened the first notification. His stomach dropped. A video, 37 seconds long. The title alone made his pulse spike. Palm Beach Charity Gala Incident. He pressed play. The footage began. The angle came from across the ballroom, likely a staff member. The image shook slightly, but it was clear, painfully clear. Monica standing, speaking calmly. Daniel sitting beside her. The room listening. Then the argument, the tension, the moment, the silence. The video ended. Daniel stared at the screen, frozen. His hands suddenly felt cold. He refreshed the page. The view count climbed before his eyes. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. Every refresh brought another surge. The comments multiplied even faster. Thousands, tens of thousands. The story was spreading, not locally, nationally, and it wasn't spreading alone. The video had attached itself to the broadcast honoring Monica. Millions of Americans had just watched her receive one of the nation's highest humanitarian awards. Now they were watching this. The contrast was devastating. Jason pushed back from his chair. This is insane. Nobody responded, because nobody disagreed. Across the ballroom, a prominent investor slowly lowered his phone. His face looked pale. Another guest quietly gathered her purse. A third began making calls. Daniel looked toward Eleanor. His mother remained seated. Perfect posture, perfect appearance. Yet for the first time in years, something seemed different. The confidence was gone, the certainty, the control. Even Eleanor Brooks understood what was happening. The story was no longer private. No amount of money could pull it back. No family name could contain it. The truth had escaped, and millions of people were watching. Meanwhile, inside the SUV, Monica sat quietly. The glow from the television reflected against the wet windows. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Former colleagues, community leaders, old friends, people from every chapter of her life. Yet she answered none of them. She simply watched. Watched the numbers climb. Watched the reactions spread. Watched a moment she wished had never happened become public property. Grace glanced toward her. You okay? Monica thought carefully, then answered honestly. No. The answer surprised neither of them. Grace nodded. I didn't think so. Monica stared at the screen. What hurt wasn't embarrassment. It wasn't publicity. It wasn't even Daniel. It was the memory of the silence, the room full of people, the people who spoke endlessly about values, leadership, integrity, community. Yet when the moment arrived to demonstrate those values, they had looked away. That was what stayed with her. Not anger, disappointment, deep disappointment. Her phone vibrated again. This time she looked. A message from one of Harbor Project's volunteers. Are you safe? Another. We love you. Another. We're with you. Another. You changed my life. Thank you. Monica swallowed hard. Because alongside the cruelty spreading online, something else was happening. Something unexpected. People were speaking. Thousands of them. Women sharing stories. Families thanking her. Former clients. Former volunteers. People she barely remembered. People who remembered her. The internet had become a flood of gratitude. Not because of the video, because of everything that came before it. Back inside the ballroom, panic continued spreading. Daniel's phone rang again. This time it was one of Brooks Capital's largest investors. Daniel answered immediately. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. The investor sounded polite, professional, respectful. Yet the meaning remained unmistakable. They were reviewing their relationship with the firm. Daniel ended the call. Then another arrived. Then another. Each conversation felt worse. Each one carried the same tone. Distance. Concern. Reevaluation. Words wealthy people used when they no longer wanted to stand beside you. Jason paced near the bar, still trying to sound confident, still trying to regain control. This will blow over. Nobody answered, because nobody believed it. Near the ballroom entrance, one of the younger hotel staff members stood quietly. A 19-year-old banquet assistant named Emily. She held her phone tightly, watching the chaos unfold. Emily knew something nobody else in the room knew. She had been the one who recorded the video. Not intentionally, not at first. When Monica stood to speak, Emily happened to be filming part of the event for a social media assignment. Then the atmosphere shifted. Something felt wrong. She kept recording. Only 37 seconds. Just enough. After Monica left, Emily watched the broadcast honoring her, watched Olivia's speech, watched the stories, watched the evidence of a life dedicated to helping others. And suddenly she knew. People deserved the truth, not gossip, not rumors. Truth. So she uploaded the footage. Now the entire country had seen it. Emily wasn't celebrating. She wasn't smiling. She simply stood there quietly, hoping she had done the right thing. The answer arrived faster than she expected. Messages flooded social media, not demanding revenge, demanding accountability, demanding honesty, demanding better. The story became impossible to ignore. News outlets picked it up. Talk shows discussed it. Political commentators weighed in. Community leaders shared statements. By midnight, Monica Brooks had become the most searched name in America. And yet, strangely, Monica herself wanted none of it. The SUV eventually pulled into a quiet parking area overlooking the ocean. Rain had stopped. Clouds drifted apart. Moonlight reflected across dark waves. Grace turned off the engine. For several moments, neither woman spoke. The world felt far away. The internet felt far away. The headlines felt far away. Only the ocean remained, steady, endless, calm. Monica stared at the water, then finally said something unexpected. "I don't want revenge." Grace looked at her. "What?" Monica kept watching the waves. I don't want any of this. The phone calls, the attention, the outrage, the collapse. She shook her head. It doesn't fix anything. Grace remained silent because she understood. Monica wasn't thinking about punishment. She was thinking about healing, about truth, about moving forward, not backward. Her phone vibrated again. Another message. This time from Harbor Project headquarters. Monica opened it. Attached was a financial report she didn't recognize. Several pages, several accounts, several years of records. A note sat at the top. You should see this. It's time. Monica frowned. What is it? Grace asked. Monica scrolled through the documents. The numbers seemed impossible. A secret fund, years of investments, donations, assets. Resources quietly growing in the background. Resources connected directly to Harbor Project. Resources almost nobody knew existed. Monica stared at the screen, confused, surprised, curious. Because buried inside those documents was one final secret. A secret capable of changing far more lives than anyone imagined. And by morning, Monica Brooks would finally learn the full truth. The sun rose slowly over the Atlantic. Golden light spilled across the water. The storm that had dominated the previous night was gone. Palm trees swayed gently beneath a clear blue sky. The world looked peaceful, as if nothing had happened. As if an entire nation hadn't spent the night talking about Monica Brooks. As if millions of people hadn't watched her story unfold. As if one of the most powerful families in Florida hadn't seen their reputation collapse in a matter of hours. Monica sat alone on a wooden bench overlooking the ocean. The Harbor Project financial documents rested beside her. She had barely slept. Not because of the headlines, not because of Daniel, not because of the interviews being requested by every major network in the country. Her thoughts remained fixed on something else. The people. The women who had called her organization during the night. The volunteers. The families. The stories. Her phone vibrated again. Another media request. Another interview offer. Another invitation. Monica silenced it. Then another message appeared. This one was different. It came from Harbor Project's 24-hour hotline. A simple report. During the previous 12 hours, the organization had received more calls than during any day in its history. Women seeking help, mothers asking questions, families searching for shelter, people who had watched the broadcast, people who had seen the video, people who finally felt less alone. Monica stared at the report. For several moments, she said nothing. Then she quietly whispered the same words she had repeated to herself for years. Keep the focus on them, not me, them. Grace approached carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one over. Monica smiled gratefully. You know, Grace said, sitting beside her, most people would be planning a press conference right now. Monica laughed softly. That's exactly why I don't want one. Grace nodded. She wasn't surprised. The 2 women watched the ocean together. For the first time since leaving the ballroom, Monica felt calm. Then her phone rang. This time she answered. The caller was Sarah Mitchell, the Harbor Project's operations director, a former social worker, one of the people Monica trusted most in the world. Sarah sounded emotional. You need to see what's happening. Monica frowned. What do you mean? It's everywhere. Monica looked confused. What is? The volunteers. Sarah laughed softly through tears. The stories. An hour later, Monica arrived at Harbor Project headquarters. The parking lot was packed, far beyond capacity. Cars lined nearby streets, Volunteers filled the building. Reporters waited outside. Local television trucks occupied the corner. But none of that surprised Monica as much as what she found inside. The lobby walls were covered. Letters, cards, photographs. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. People kept arriving, bringing more. A retired veteran stood near the entrance. A young mother held a child. An elderly couple waited patiently. Each person carried something. A story. A memory. A reason. Monica slowly moved through the crowd. Nobody rushed her. Nobody demanded attention. Instead, they thanked her. A woman in her 60s stepped forward. "You helped my daughter." Another person spoke. "You found housing for my brother." Another. "You paid for my son's textbooks." Another. "You stayed with my mother in the hospital when nobody else came." Monica looked stunned. Many of these moments she barely remembered, not because they weren't important, because she never kept score. She never viewed kindness as a transaction. Yet the people standing before her remembered every detail, every act, every phone call, every visit, every moment someone showed up when they needed help. By afternoon, the stories continued spreading online. The hashtag connected to Monica had transformed. The conversation wasn't about scandal anymore. It wasn't even about the video. It had become something larger. People began sharing stories about kindness, helping neighbors, supporting strangers, checking on elderly relatives, volunteering, donating, listening. Across the country, community organizations reported increased interest. Shelters received volunteers. Food banks received donations. Small acts multiplied. The ripple effect had begun. Meanwhile, reporters continued requesting interviews. National news programs wanted statements. Commentators wanted reactions. Everyone expected Monica to speak about Daniel, to attack him, to criticize the Brooks family, to express anger. Instead, late that afternoon, Monica finally agreed to one appearance. A brief live interview. Nothing more. The studio arranged a simple set. No dramatic music. No confrontation. No spectacle. The host asked the question everyone expected. "Monica, after everything that's happened, what would you like to say about Daniel Brooks?" Millions watched, waiting. Monica sat quietly for a moment, then answered, "I don't want to spend my life talking about the people who hurt me." The host looked surprised. The audience became silent. Monica continued, "I want to spend my life helping the people who still need help." The clip immediately spread across social media, not because it was dramatic, because it was unexpected. The world had prepared for revenge. Monica offered purpose. The host tried again. "Do you want justice?" Monica nodded. "Yes." The answer came immediately. But justice and revenge aren't the same thing. The room fell silent. Monica's voice remained calm. "The legal system will do its job." She paused. "My job is different." The host leaned forward. "And what is your job?" Monica smiled. The same gentle smile people at Harbor Project knew well. "My job is making sure nobody feels invisible." The interview ended. The clip spread everywhere, not because of controversy, because people recognized truth when they heard it. That evening, Monica returned to Harbor Project headquarters. Most volunteers had gone home. The building felt peaceful again. The sunset painted the windows orange and gold. Sarah waited in Monica's office. Several folders sat on the desk. The same financial records from the night before. Sarah pushed them forward. "I think it's time." Monica sat down, slowly opened the first folder, then the second, then the third. Page after page revealed something astonishing. Years earlier, Monica had quietly created a reserve fund. Every speaking fee, every award payment, every consulting check, every royalty payment from her journalism career. A percentage had gone into a separate investment account. She barely remembered doing it. At first it had been a habit, then a safety net, then a long-term plan. Over the years, generous donors had added to it. Several anonymous benefactors had contributed significant amounts. Investment growth had done the rest. Monica stared at the total. The number looked unreal. Sarah smiled. "You never paid attention to it." Monica shook her head. "No. You were too busy helping people." The fund now contained enough money to dramatically expand Harbor Project's reach. New shelters, new legal programs, new housing initiatives, new community centers. The possibilities seemed endless. Monica sat quietly, thinking, planning, dreaming. Not for herself, for others. Always others. As darkness settled outside, she walked through the empty building one last time. Past offices, past meeting rooms, past photographs hanging on walls. Every hallway carried memories. Every room carried purpose. Near the exit, she stopped. A framed photograph hung beside the front door. The picture showed Harbor Project's earliest volunteers, folding tables, second-hand chairs, a tiny office above a laundromat. The beginning. Monica smiled. They had come so far, yet somehow she felt the journey was only beginning. As she stepped outside, her phone vibrated again. A message from Richard Langston. Only one sentence. "Tomorrow's announcement is ready." Monica stared at the words. Tomorrow. A new chapter. A bigger platform. A larger mission. The ocean breeze moved gently through the evening air. And for the first time in many years, Monica felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Not relief. Not victory. Hope. Because the silence was finally over, and the future was waiting. 1 year later, the skyline of New York glowed beneath a crisp autumn sunset. Golden light reflected from glass towers. Traffic moved steadily through Manhattan. People hurried along crowded sidewalks carrying coffee cups, briefcases, and dreams. Inside the headquarters of National Broadcast Network, another evening broadcast was about to begin. The studio buzzed with quiet energy. Producers checked schedules. Technicians adjusted cameras. Assistants moved between control rooms carrying notes and tablets. Above it all, suspended from the ceiling, dozens of lights illuminated the anchor desk. And seated behind that desk was Monica Brooks. The red dress she wore was elegant without being flashy. Her posture was calm, confident, comfortable. Not because she had become famous, because she had finally become herself again. A makeup artist made one final adjustment, then stepped away. 30 seconds. Monica nodded. The studio settled into silence. The giant cameras pointed toward her. The same cameras that once felt intimidating. Now they felt familiar, like old friends. Behind the scenes, framed photographs decorated one wall of the newsroom. Major stories, historic broadcasts, award-winning journalists, and among them hung a photograph of Monica standing outside Harbor Project's original office above the laundromat in Jacksonville. A reminder, a beginning. The control room counted down. 20 seconds. Monica glanced toward a small monitor. The image displayed another location hundreds of miles away. Jacksonville, the Harbor Project. What began as a tiny office had transformed beyond anything she once imagined. There were now 12 Harbor Project centers across the country: Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New Orleans, and more still under construction. Every center offered legal assistance, emergency housing support, job placement programs, mental health services, educational opportunities. Thousands of families had received help. Thousands more remained on waiting lists because the need never disappeared. But neither did the hope. 10 seconds. Monica smiled softly. Her thoughts drifted briefly toward the people who made it possible. Grace. Still running operations with the same steady wisdom she had always possessed. Sarah. The volunteers. The donors. The social workers. The retired teachers. The church groups. The community leaders. People who showed up every day because they cared. 5 seconds. The monitor changed. Another image appeared. Olivia Parker, now 24 years old. Attorney Olivia Parker. The title still made Monica smile. Olivia stood inside Harbor Project's Chicago Legal Center, helping a young mother complete paperwork. Exactly where she belonged. Exactly where she wanted to be. The promise she whispered beside that hotel window years earlier had finally come true. She had found a way to repay Monica. Not with money, not with praise, by helping others. Tyler was doing well too, studying engineering, mentoring younger students, building a life that once seemed impossible. 3 seconds. Monica glanced at another photograph resting beside the monitor. Her mother, Lorraine Carter, still smiling from inside a simple silver frame. Some days Monica still reached for the phone wanting to call her. Some days grief never completely disappeared. But grief had changed. It no longer felt like an open wound. It felt like love that refused to leave. 1 second. The red light blinked on. The broadcast began. Good evening. I'm Monica Brooks. Millions of Americans heard her voice, the same voice that once reported stories from crowded city streets, the same voice that spoke for people nobody wanted to see, the same voice that refused to disappear. The evening broadcast moved smoothly. National news, economic updates, community stories, policy discussions. Yet what made Monica different wasn't her delivery. It was her perspective. She understood ordinary people because she came from them. She understood struggle because she had lived it. She understood dignity because she had fought to keep hers. The ratings continued climbing, not because audiences enjoyed drama, because they trusted her. Trust had become rare. Monica never took that lightly. Halfway through the broadcast, a short feature aired. A new Harbor Project housing development in Chicago. Families moved into safe apartments. Children unpacked school supplies. Grandparents planted flowers in community gardens. Simple things. Beautiful things. The camera showed one young woman unlocking her front door for the first time. The woman began crying. Monica felt tears forming too, even after all these years. Especially after all these years. Back in Florida, the Brooks estate stood quiet. The massive property remained beautiful. Yet something fundamental had changed. The Brooks family name still existed. Their wealth still existed. But the certainty had vanished. The belief that power could protect people from consequences. Daniel lived alone now. Their marriage had ended months earlier. Not through bitterness, not through revenge, through truth. The truth that some relationships cannot survive years of silence. He occasionally watched Monica's broadcasts, sometimes from the living room, sometimes from his office, always quietly. Regret had become a permanent companion. Not because Monica succeeded, because he failed to stand beside her when it mattered. Eleanor rarely appeared in public anymore. Jason moved to another state and largely disappeared from headlines. Life moved on, as it always does, but history remained, and lessons remained too. Back in New York, the broadcast approached its conclusion. The final commercial break ended. The red light illuminated once more. Monica prepared for the closing segment. A routine sign-off. Nothing extraordinary. Yet tonight felt different. Perhaps because of the anniversary. Perhaps because of everything that had happened. Perhaps because she finally understood the full meaning of her journey. The producer's voice echoed softly through her earpiece. 30 seconds. Monica nodded. The final story concluded. The teleprompter scrolled toward the end. She delivered the closing lines flawlessly. Then the script ended. The red light remained on. 4 seconds. Just 4. 4 unscripted seconds. 4 seconds entirely hers. Monica looked directly into the camera, directly into millions of homes, into living rooms, hospital rooms, apartments, dormitories, shelters, everywhere. And she thought about the ballroom, the silence, the bus shelter, the storm, her mother, Olivia, Grace, every person who had ever felt invisible. Then she spoke, very softly, very clearly. Loving people doesn't make you weak. The studio fell completely still. Monica continued. Looking away when someone is hurting does. A pause. A beautiful pause. And kindness always travels farther than we imagine. The red light turned off. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the studio. For a moment, nobody moved. Then applause erupted. Not because she was famous, not because she was successful, because everyone in that room knew the words were true. Monica stood. The crew applauded. Producers smiled. Technicians wiped away tears. She thanked them, then walked toward the exit. Outside, night had settled across New York. The city sparkled beneath thousands of lights. Her phone buzzed. A message from Olivia. 3 words. We're helping more. Monica smiled. Then another message arrived. A photograph. A new harbor project center under construction. Children standing beside the sign. Volunteers painting walls. A future taking shape. Monica looked up toward the stars barely visible above the city. Years ago, she had stood in a ballroom filled with people who chose silence. Tonight, she stood surrounded by people who chose compassion. The difference between those worlds was not money, not power, not status. It was courage. The courage to care, the courage to speak, the courage to help. And in the end, that courage had changed everything. The woman who once walked away from a room where nobody stood beside her had become a light for thousands of others. And the seeds of kindness she planted long ago had returned when she needed them most. Not as rewards, not as miracles, but as proof. Proof that every act of compassion matters. Proof that every person matters. Proof that hope survives. The city lights shimmered in the distance. The future stretched before her. And Monica Brooks walked toward it with a smile. Because her story had never been about what was taken from her. It had always been about what she chose to give. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still has the power to change a life.
When Olivia Parker stood on that national stage and told America about the rainy night, Monica wrote, rocked herself in blankets and hugged. It wasn't fame that came full circle. It was a single act of compassion, returning years later in a way no one could have imagined. This story reminds us that some of the most important things we do may never be recognized in the moment. The people we have quietly today may carry that kindness with them for the rest of their life. even when we never see the outcome ourselves. Today, think of one person who might be struggling silently and reach out with something simple, a phone call, a kind word, or a few minutes of your time. Monica Road didn't change life because she had power. She changed life because she chose to show up when someone needed her. Have you ever helped someone and later discovered how much that small act means to them? Tell me in the comment below, and if Monica's story moved you, comment 1 so we know her message reached your heart. Stay with us because the next story begins with another ordinary moment that no one realized would change everything.